Value lists allow users to enter data easily and consistently. Making it easy for users to enter data is important, but consistency is really underrated. I've seen a lot of databases in my 20-year career, and one of the most common issues is inconsistency in data entry. Because what happens is people end up typing in a spelling error, or they type in an abbreviation, or maybe something that means kind of the same thing. So what happens when you go to do reporting, because that's one of the biggest reasons why you have a database is to do reports, and you do a report based on that field to categorize your records. Well, what happens is all these fields that have different spellings and things like that show up in different areas of the report. So in order to make your data entry consistent, you want to use a value list, and we're going to show you how to do that. We'll go to layout mode, and we're going to put it on this category field. We're going to click on it once and then show the inspector. And you may be wondering, what's the deal with this inspector? Well, it really has nothing new. The feature is how it organizes all these features you always had. The features used to be under these menus. And if you want to set multiple features on a single field, let's say, you'd have to go to the menu and choose what you wanted and get a dialog and check what you wanted, and then go to the menu and choose another dialog. All that stuff is organized in one place, and once you get used to it, you're going to find this makes your database design dramatically more efficient. So we click on this field, go to the Data tab, verify we're on the right field, and then we change this to a radio button set. We're going to go over all these, but let's start with radio button. And then what we want to do is choose a value list to use with this control style. Well, we have none, that's why we can't click on here. So we'll click on this little pencil, and this is Manage Value List, which you can get to from the File menu, Manage, and you'll see it under the sub menu. We're going to do it from here because it's easier. So we'll hit New, we'll type in Categories as our value list, and the first choice, the most common choice in the default, is custom values. And this is good for values that don't change often, such as, let's say you had a pop-up menu or a radio button of all the states inside of the United States. Well, there's 50 and it's unlikely to change. So why go ahead and base it off of values from a field which is dynamic, which requires a table? But on the other hand, if you have customers, you don't want to keep coming in and typing in each customer name. You want to use values from a field so that each time you add it to your customers table, that pop-up menu updates based on the contents of all those records from that field. And then you have your third choice, which is use value list from another file. Let's say you had two files. You created a value list in file 1, and then you wanted the same pop-up menu over in file 2. Well, rather than create it in both places and then have to update it in both places, borrow it, and then you can update it in one place. But I think that our custom values, the simplest way to do this is to use the custom values, because it's, we only have 3 choices we're going to put in here. And the first choice is commercial. Now, if you remember, commercial is auto-entered into the category as our initial choice, our default choice. If you want more choices, that's where you use this value list. And we're going to hit the return to get our second choice in there. We'll say government, and then another return, and we'll type in nonprofit. So the returns tell this value list that this is one distinct choice, and this is another choice. So we'll click OK. We'll click OK again. We see now that we have the values there. We can pop this up. There's only one choice, but that's why we couldn't pop it up before. Now we can see that we have commercial, government, and nonprofit doesn't quite fit there, so we'll make it a little bit bigger. There you go. And let's go to browse mode. And you can see now that you can choose different choices other than the default. And you can see that all the records that are in here already have commercial chosen, because when you're clicking these, you're actually entering that data, this word government there. So you can still search it. If you put this field on here without the value list on it, you would see the word government right now. So we'll go ahead and go back to this first record. And what we're going to do is show you how to select multiple choices. Just hold the Shift key down. There you go. You've got 2 choices or 3 choices. Now, generally, this is not a good idea because we want to have one choice. That's the idea behind a radio button. So I wouldn't tell your users how to do that. Better for multiple choices is checkbox. You don't have to hold down the Shift key. So let's go ahead and try that out. We'll click on this field, go into our checkbox, and you can see with the inspector how efficient that is. Rather than going to the menu, going to the dialog, clicking OK, it's making it really into just 1 click or 2 clicks. So go back into browse mode. You can see without the Shift key I can make multiple choices. Although I generally avoid checkbox because what it does is it prevents your reporting. If you want to go ahead and report on multiple choices here. You can't really divide this because when you're checking on all these, you're getting commercial and government and nonprofit all in that field, and then you want them in different places in your report, and it's not easy to do. So if you don't need to do reporting, well, then you can use a checkbox. But if you do need to do reporting, you have to take the extra step and make another table and use a relationship in a portal, which we'll get into later. So we're going to uncheck those. We'll go back into layout mode, and we'll click on this, and now we'll try a pop-up menu. Go back into browse mode. You can see it has a nice 3D look here, and you can click and hold down and choose whatever choice you want. It's that simple. Now, I like pop-up menus because they're obvious what's going on here. You can see that choice, this is different than a regular field. But you really don't have any keyboard control. You have a little bit on the Windows platform. You can tab into it. But when we look at a drop-down list, you'll see the big difference. So let's look at that. We'll go ahead and click on this, and we'll go and change it to a drop-down list. Go back into browse mode, and now you can see that it doesn't really look like anything special, but as soon as you click into it, well, there you go. You have your drop-down list, and you can make the same choices. But the big difference is, if we want to go ahead and tab to it, as soon as we get down there, you'll see that now keyboard people can get into this field. Not just mouse people, but keyboard people also. In fact, if you want, this could be good or bad, you can click a second time in there, get your cursor in there, and type in whatever you want. So that's kind of nice. You can use a validation with the value list to prevent people from typing stuff in there. So a validation can prevent that and avoid that issue. Now, one thing is it's not obvious what you're doing here, so we're going to go back into layout mode, click on this, and you can see include arrow to show and hide list. So we'll go into browse mode and see what that looks like. And you see now you have this nifty little arrow here. Now, if we go ahead and tab through this, you'll notice that it doesn't pop up anymore with the keyboard. So generally that's not a good idea because now it's more like, oh, I can type into it or I can pop it up. That's the idea behind it. So I don't really like that feature, but it's a personal preference again. So I'm going to turn that off, and we're going to check this option, allow editing of value list. Go into browse mode, and now you'll see another choice down here where you can actually edit this value list. I don't generally give this to users because they may go ahead and change one of these values which you don't want. All they have to do is just hit a return and type in the new value, but sometimes people do weird things, and I generally don't give them this power, so I would take that feature off. So we'll go back into layout mode, take that feature off, and remember also when we did this include arrow to show and hide list, if it's not showing up in browse mode, that means you don't have borders, but of course we have borders, so it's showing up. It's the same idea as a scroll bar which we covered before. So now what we want to go ahead and do is look at some other options here. So let's go ahead and change this back to our radio button set, which I like on this one. Go to our date of birth and change this one into a drop-down calendar. And I like this feature of including the icon to show and hide calendar because it gives them the great option here that we want. And I'll show how it differs between what we had on this category field. This allows me to click into it and type in a date, or pop up this menu and choose a date this way and walk through them, use all these controls. So I like that better because here you do want to sometimes type the date in. Here we want consistency of data entry, so we really want them to go ahead and type stuff in. We want it to be controlled here. So there's your value list. Use them wisely. They'll really help you to make consistent data entry.